Today is definitely walk in the park day, as I didn't get a chance to yesterday because I was working, and I'm wearing my earthing shoe attachment. This rubber connects to the earth, and then this string connects to my skin, and it's grounded. And I have an earthing sheet and I have an earthing mat, so it seems like by virtue of the gestures I make and some of the things that I buy that I value being connected to the earth. So Mother Earth knows that I'm here in the most direct way, through contact. After I made videos this morning with the magical costume that I bought, after I realized that there's an upcoming barbecue, this big community barbecue, and I could wear some of that and hang out with the kids. And I only thought of that idea because of how I bought that. So as soon as I bought it and tried it on, I realized that it has many applications. And this is probably the opposite of marketing, where people buy things and then realize they're never going to use them because they bought the hype. Whereas when we're creative with what we buy and creative in the way we live, then whatever we buy we will be more creative with. And I remember creating a word the very first time I was in map consciousness, amplify, which is sometimes we buy things that will amplify our creativity, or we buy something cheap and it becomes really useful and it helps us be more creative. So we can watch out for things that are helpful to amplify instead of things that end up on the shelf and don't get used. But I also have my 2-year rule, where sometimes I buy stuff and I don't use it, but 2 years later I'm like, aha, I need this. And then I have it, and I also realize that that's what I need because I did buy it before. And my pants are still really loose on me. I've been eating like a pig since I donated blood and not gaining any weight really, I don't think. And this morning I started making or continuing to work on a brochure that I started to make. And I used one of the templates in Pages and then added my own photos in the spots where there were photos. And then today I changed the color of all the font to be different colors. And then I started on the first side of the brochure, and I put some of the things that are those movements I talked about, like homeless for homelessness, and heart on, and laughter matters, blah blah blah, all those things. Because I was thinking about, if I get creative with when I feel like creating words around the structure or the scaffolding I'm putting together, if I do it as something creative, then it's something new, and I won't make different documents about it, but creative things like a brochure or a poster or creative marketing around it, I guess, because it's about inviting people into this universe, which is creating a new universe, a different scaffolding than the one we've been given in terms of the mental health system and all the context that goes around that. Creating a new context, creating a new function for our lives, which could be something like living more according to meaning and blah blah blah. Maybe I'll print it off and share what I've created so far with that. So that might be a way to help me think about the structure that I'm creating is to create these little businessy type documents to go along with this application I have to do, and then I'd have to create a business plan. But if I create the marketing first, maybe that'll make the business plan easier to create. Maybe this is, I'm just seeing this now, a good way to do things is create the marketing first, see how it feels and everything, and then create the plan around that. Because I'm not even sure how much I like supporting people, but it could be fun to build a scaffolding, which I'm doing, sharing as my life, and then inviting people to co-create that structure and live in that and create a new world for us to live in, and as with that's in alignment with our new functionalities. Because I was clued into that listening to Jamie Wheel talk about how some people do so bad on IQ tests, but when they're given the same test with a different structure to write it out and things, they do 40% better. So if we have a different structure to live out our lives, we could do 40% better, maybe even more. Maybe we could do 40% better functioning than what is considered the best functioning out there right now. But it's a different operating system altogether. That's my hypothesis. If we can't work mundane 9-to-5 jobs and that sort of structure, well, what sort of structure can we work harder in, like that creativity study was saying? I've been working very hard in my own structure, doing the self-dialogue, living my dream trip, doing another trip, designing other things, now starting to think of a possible business. And I feel like I've been functioning very well, but it's not one that's getting me any kind of monetary reward or all these rewards that of status or anything like that. I'm not getting any of those societal rewards, but I'm working for something for sure. And I don't think it's rewarding separate from being with life. And I had an insight this morning about, it was more like a download that just said there is a living order and a mechanical order. And sharing or spending attention on life augments the life capacity of the human brain, the capacity to meet life. And that's the only place there's any power in meeting actuality. And then there's a mechanical order of thought which has taken over in order to build this world. But we now need to get reacquainted with this life algorithm. We don't need to grow in structure and economic growth and all of that. We need to grow in meaning and seeing life and understanding what it's all about with our own eyes and hearts, and not needing 10 years of education to understand one tiny little segment of life, and then utilizing that to project a pattern in which we live and live such a partial life, and then wonder where the meaning of life is. So yeah, it's not about time. When we're curious about life, life is curious about us back. And it helps us. Life affirming responds to life affirming. It can't respond to something that's not life. So I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but I'm thinking that an hour in the forest with life could be like 80% energy or something that makes it so we have more time, or feel like we do have more time, or something. I'm not sure, but and also when one is in this living algorithm, one doesn't have to do anything because one is one with the movement of life. So one is moving with the movement of life. There's no doing separate from that. So then when one is in nature or something, one is more easily moving with the movement of life, and that helps to create more of this moving with the movement of life, which is flow. And flow feels effortless. And where the feeling of effort comes is from feeling, or from the personal I, emotions. Emoting and then wanting to stop that emotion or get more of a certain emotion, thus projecting a pattern that we feel will get us more of that emotion. Hence, that's reward and punishment. So that's probably where the study gets that notion from. But there's a movement of life that isn't about reward and punishment, of personal emotions. This forest has nothing to do with my personal emotions. The catalyst is life meeting life. Life affirming, augmenting life, augmenting actuality. And I feel like this is where that sense of two worlds comes in. One world is this living order of moving with life and meaning, and it's always new. And the other is operating mechanically with thought. So one is insight and intelligence, the other is thought, mechanical, seeing our own projections, acting according to those, which isn't moving with life. It's moving with our conditioning, which is against life, and that's why it feels like effort. It's not necessarily against life, but it's not congruent. And I might do 2 laps of this trail today because it's going to be closed for 5 days on part of it because they're fixing a bridge.